City releases are the most exciting part of the Upland Metaverse. You can go ahead and mint some of the most exciting and interesting properties that you can find in the city. If you're a new player, a new city release can be quite overwhelming, and that's also true for more experienced players. In fact, city releases are geared more towards more experienced players. In this video, I'm going to explain to you everything that you need to know as a new player in order to capitalize on these new city releases and jumpstarting your path to becoming an Uplander Pro, Director, or Executive.
I'm YK2012, founder of the Upland Guide. I'm here to unlock the secrets of the Upland Metaverse. On this channel, you can find everything you need to build your Upland empire. Expert tutorials, winning strategies, pro tips and tricks, and a lot more. Hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell to stay ahead of the game. Remember, knowledge is power, and in the Upland Metaverse, that knowledge is truly your most valuable asset.
The ball gets rolling when Upland makes an official announcement of a new city that is going to be opened up in the metaverse. The announcement is quite long and jam-packed with lots of things that you can purchase ahead of the city release in order to ensure that you are able to succeed. These things can vary between the different city releases, and I'm not going to go into complete details about every one of those. In this video, I'm going to cover the most important and basic aspects that you need to know in order to ensure that you are in the city prior to the release so that you are able to mint some properties. Now, when it comes to new city releases, the announcement that Upland sends out, which is often quite lengthy, is super important to read in detail. There's lots of important information there, and you don't want to miss out on it. Things like the city details, those are extremely important. First, you want to know exactly when the city is going to be opening up because you absolutely do not want to be late. If you're late, all of the best properties will already be minted. In the city details, they tell you things like the amount of properties that are going to be released, the percentage of the city that is going to be opened in the initial release, how you can travel there via public transportation, whether it be via airplane or train or other methods, the number of collections that we can expect to see in that city, the amount of FSA properties as a percentage of everything that's going to be released. This can often give an indication to people about the pricing of that city based on how many properties that are going to be available for newer players, those being uplanders and visitors who are the only ones who are able to mint these FSA properties. Depending on the city and if there are going to be future releases, there is a current treasure hunting tier and an official treasure hunting tier. Based on the limited number of properties that are currently to be released in this new city release, it's possible that the treasure hunting tier will increase. As these certain cities grow in size, the treasure hunting tiers will increase as well, thus meaning that some of their reward payouts will also increase. The most famous of properties in a specific city are called landmarks in Upland, and this is a curated list as well of properties that will not be available to mint during city releases. These are often reserved for rewards or sales of different types of landmarks. And most importantly, we've got the addresses of the Launchpad properties. These properties are spread out amongst the map, which Upland will also share with us to show us which neighborhoods are part of the release and the neighborhood boundaries. Next, the announcement will detail everything you need to know about the travel routes and terminal sales for the city. The transportation terminals are sold after the city release, and they can be several hundreds of dollars up to over $1,000 if you're looking to buy an airplane terminal. You will still be able to, and you will need to travel to the city before the actual city release, and about 24 hours before the city is going to be released, Upland shares another announcement that the travel routes are open and you will be able to start traveling to that city. Now, the first thing that you're going to have to do in order to mint properties in the new city release is actually to travel to that new city. Before you start traveling to this new city, you're going to want to make sure that you have the maximum number of cents that you can hold before you start traveling. The last thing you want to happen is for you to start jumping around during the new city release to try and find different properties to mint and for you to run out of cents. If you really want to make sure you have more cents, you can always click on the Get UpX button, go under Extras, and you can purchase 10 cents for 99 cents. If that's the route you want to take, make sure you plan ahead, because if you're going to go ahead and buy these 10 cents when you've already run out of cents during the city release, that's going to cost you time, and you could potentially miss out on that property that you're looking to mint because you didn't have cents. So in Upland's announcement, they will tell you how you can travel to this new city, but it's really important that you actually do this on time, and there are a couple of ways that you can get there, and it does matter. If you own your own vehicle, it's possible you might be able to drive your own car there if the city you are in is in the same landmass as the new city that is going to be released. You must factor in that driving your car can take quite a long time, so make sure you figure out if you have enough time to get there, or you will have to use public transportation, because you definitely don't want to be late. One of the advantages of driving your own vehicle is that you do save one send by not having to send yourself to a public transportation terminal. Some cities have multiple options of how to get there. For example, there are many cities that have airplane terminals, but also train terminals. If you take a plane instead of a train, then it will cost you more, but you will get there faster. In addition to the fact that flying into a new city is going to cost more than taking a train, there are other disadvantages of flying. If you look at a city like Washington, D.C., you can see that west of the city, there are two airplane terminals. One of them is white, which is a domestic terminal, and one is yellow, which is international. And just north of that, there is a train terminal as well. This means that when you're flying into the Washington airport, you're actually ending up over there. And in order to get to the city, you're going to have to send yourself from that airplane terminal to the train terminal just north of it. And from there, you will have to pay to take a train, which is only a couple of minutes, that will take you into the city. Now, if you're going to try and send yourself into Washington directly from the train station, you're going to see that it's not going to be possible. Here, I'm going to have to choose to pay the 50 UPEX, and I'm going to confirm that, but it's not going to let me. It says you cannot send your Explorer to this property from another city. So the airport and the city itself are two different cities when it comes to Upland, and you can't send yourself directly. So what you're going to have to do is first you're going to have to send yourself to this train station, but it's important to notice that each terminal has a total number of seats remaining. Here we can see there are 305 seats remaining. That means that for today in Upland, there are 305 remaining times that people can send themselves to this terminal. Once this hits zero, then that terminal cannot be used anymore until the day resets in Upland. Now, this is rarely an issue, but you can see here that there are 1 of 10 train terminals, but only one of them is currently minted, and that's by the Upland Bureau. Once the terminals have been sold, then you're not going to see that this is going to be an issue. But when you have thousands of people trying to fly in to this new city release and use this train terminal, it's going to become overclogged. And what Upland has done up until now is that on a periodic basis, they will add more seats to this train terminal so that more people can start flying. In the best case scenario, that's a little bit of a hassle. In the worst case scenario, if you're waiting till the last minute in order to fly in, you might find that you might not be able to get into the city itself. So because of this, I highly suggest traveling early and making sure that you have 11 sends before you start traveling. Because once you get into the city, there aren't going to be sends until after the city is released. Now that I'm at that train terminal, I'm going to be able to purchase a ticket which will take me into the city. This is going to cost me 11 UPEX and it's going to take me 4 minutes. So now that I'm on my way into the city, that's exactly how I'm going to travel there. I can circumvent all of this by just taking the train into the city. By taking the train into Washington, it's going to take me into the train which is at the city, not the one by the airport. So I'm going to save all of that hassle in addition to saving the additional send that I'm going to need in order to get myself from this airport to that train station. Now, of course, this is dependent on the fact that you can take a train from your originating city into the new city. Regardless of how you get there, as I suggested earlier, make sure you travel early. Once you disembark from the train terminal, then your Block Explorer starts to wander in a random direction. Now, I spoke about these Launchpad properties earlier, and this is exactly where it starts to come into play. The question then becomes, how are you going to mint a property in this new city if no properties have been minted before? Once you arrive in the city, chances are none of these property lines will be visible. They only show up several hours before the actual city release. And when they do pop up, they won't be gray, they will be white. Now here you can see, if you look quickly, they're white and now they're going to turn gray. That's exactly the moment that the city release happens and you will be able to mint properties. Your only problem is that you can't mint gray properties. You can only mint green properties. So how do you make a gray property turn green? You need to be in range of the properties that you want to mint. So here we can see it's out of range. You can get into range by sending yourself to an already minted property. Once you land on that property, you will start to see that the gray properties are going to turn green. And that essentially means that you are now in range. So we can see that there is a circle here, which is around my block explorer, where properties I am able to mint. Here we can see it says you've discovered the property and I have the ability to buy it. Now you can see that as my block explorer starts to wander again in a random direction, he starts to generate a tail and more properties start to come into range of my block explorer, while these ones still remain in my range as well. This tail will last for approximately 18 to 20 minutes, so as my block explorer continues to wander, there are going to be more properties that are going to be in my range. Now, if I wanted to go ahead and try and mint this property really quickly, I don't want to wait for my block explorer to start wandering in that direction. I'm going to want to jump to the next property and try and mint this one as fast as I can. Now we can see here that the bubble around my block explorer has reset and the properties that were in range before are no longer in range. I'm able to now mint this property if I so choose because it has become into range. Now ahead of the city release, when you click on some of these properties, you won't actually see the mint prices. So the question is, how will you know which properties you want to mint and how much are they going to cost? Here's a pro tip. You can click on your block explorer and click on this button over here, and you will be able to see the properties that are in range of your block explorer, and you will be able to see the price and the earnings of those properties. You can go ahead and click on one of those properties and you will be able to see what the size of it is. Again, you won't see the price here, but you wrote that down from a moment ago and now you know what the property size is. If you take the price and divide that by the size, you will be able to calculate the neighborhood value. So that calculation will give you 2,584, which means that each up squared is going to cost you 2,584 UPX. So if I double click here and start zooming out and looking at what neighborhood this is in, which is Georgetown, you want to make sure that you have your neighborhood boundaries toggled on. You are going to be able to calculate what the mint price of every single property in this neighborhood is, because for every one up squared, which costs 2,584 UPX, you can apply that to any property here. So if I were to go ahead and click on this property without knowing the actual price, I would be able to do the reverse calculation of taking the 2,584 and multiplying it by 34 to get the actual UPX mint price. More about this calculation and other important tips about that in the link in the description below and the upper right hand corner. This is another important tip which also provides you more information ahead of the city release, so you're not going in blind. You are able to figure out maybe if there's that one property that you want but you don't have enough UPX. This gives you the heads up beforehand that you might want to buy some UPX before the city release or plan accordingly. So what does this have to do with the Launchpad property? These properties are ones that are minted by Upland ahead of the city release, kind of like this one here, which is off in the middle of nowhere, and players are able to send themselves to this specific property prior to the city release in order to start wandering off in a specific direction. Upland will typically mint a number of properties that are scattered around the map, allowing players to choose different starting points of where they could potentially want to start. You don't have to send yourself to one of these properties. You might find that just by wandering around, you might be in an excellent location for when the city releases, but there are some people who do use these launching pads as a strategic point in order to get where they want to go. Let's say I really wanted to mint this property, which is right next to the Launchpad property. What I'm going to want to do is to send myself to this property 18 to 20 minutes before the actual city release to allow my block explorer to wander and create as much of a tail as possible to maximize the number of properties that will be in range of my block explorer, so that when all of these properties change from white to gray, as you saw a moment ago, I can try and click on this property and go ahead and mint it. It's important not to forget that you're likely not the only person to be doing this strategy, so there probably will be a very high amount of competition trying to mint this specific property and any of the properties that are probably in close range of some of these Launchpad properties. If you send yourself to this property and you want to be heading north and your block explorer starts heading south, you might decide to send yourself back to this property once again in order to start going in the direction that you want to go. Hopefully it'll work out for you, but maybe it won't. You also have to really factor in your sends here because you don't want to run out of sends. At this point, you won't be able to find any sends on the map because they are only released about 5 to 10 minutes after the city is actually released. If you're going to need more sends, what you're going to have to do is go onto the Get UpX button under Extras, and then you are able to purchase 10 sends for 99 cents. Again, this is why it's super important to maximize the number of sends that you have before you start traveling to the new city. Now that I've shown you how you're able to mint a property in a new city release, you're going to want to know about the FSA properties and also collection properties. If you're a brand new player, someone who has a net worth of less than 100,000 UPX, which means that you're either a visitor or an uplander, you are able to mint properties that are FSA properties. FSA stands for Fair Start Act, and that enables players of that status the ability to mint these properties. A player with a higher net worth is unable to mint these FSA properties. However, they are able to purchase them off of other players. FSA properties are typically the cheapest properties that you are able to find in the city. You're only allowed to mint 3 FSA properties each day, and for a total of 10 FSA properties in total over the lifespan of your account. There's more information about these properties in the link in the upper right hand corner and the description below, so make sure that you understand that as well. But these FSA properties can be a great opportunity for new players to start growing their net worth in Upland. One of the downsides of these FSA properties is that you're only able to list, sell, or trade 2 of them each week. The next types of properties that I talked about are collection properties. There are 2 types of city releases that can occur. There could be standard releases or vanilla releases. Standard releases means that Upland will tell you what the collections are ahead of the city release itself. Whereas vanilla releases, these collections are hidden until approximately 1 week after the city is released, where Upland will announce what the collections are. Collections are quite popular because they provide you with additional boosted earnings if you are able to own the specified number of properties that you need in order to make that collection. These collections are often famous neighborhoods, streets, or curated properties within the city. Upland will release thousands of properties in a city release, and there are many reasons why you might want to purchase a property in one neighborhood versus another neighborhood. I'm not going to get into that in this video, but everyone needs to really think about their own strategy and why you might want to purchase a property. Are you looking to sell it for a quick flip? Are you looking to create a meta venture on it and create your own business? Are you looking to become part of a community? Or there are lots of other reasons why you might want to mint a property in a specific area. It's important to create a strategy before the city release and have a backup strategy, because you might find that the properties that you wanted to mint have already been minted by somebody else, or your block explorer might not be in an area which is where you want it to be. So it's good to have a couple of different ideas of areas where you might want to mint properties. So to summarize this very basic introduction of new city releases, you're going to want to read the entire announcement because there's lots of additional details that are really important, even for seasoned veterans of people who have participated in dozens of city releases. You're going to want to collect all your sends before you start traveling to the new city, and make sure you get there on time. Do some research, develop a strategy, connect with other players, and try and think of where you might want to mint as a group, and have several strategies ahead of the city release. Don't be late. Make sure you're utilizing these Launchpad properties and your Block Explorer tail to your advantage. Know about these FSA properties and try and think where some collection properties might be as well. Have a strategy and several backup strategies. And now that you've reached the end of this video, if you head into settings, I toggle off all of these options, which will slow down the game, except for FSA markers. I want to have that on. As a new player, you know which properties you're able to buy and are likely the cheapest. And for myself, as an executive, I want to have that on to know which properties that I cannot buy. I wish you lots of luck in your upcoming city release, and if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message in the comments below or reach out to me on any of my social media platforms, which you can find also in the description. Make sure if you haven't done so to subscribe to my channel and learn more about Upland in these following videos.